good, all of you beautiful people out there? How are y'all doing today? That is fantastic. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Double Diesel Sports Podcast, the podcast where we talk everything National Football League in season, off season. It doesn't matter because it's football. I'm your host, Double Diesel, and welcome to this brief Week 4 recap of the 2023 National Football League season. Before we dive into the video, I would like to ask, if you have not done so already, to please like, subscribe, and share the video if you enjoy this content or know anybody that would enjoy this kind of content. Helps boost the channel, boost exposure, get us out there in the algorithm, get us out to more viewers. So if you have not done that and you'd like to, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, if you have not done so already, go support me on my Patreon at patreon.com/Double Diesel Sports. If you want to support the channel, help put food in my belly, that would be greatly appreciated. Links to that will be in the description down below. But let's get on with the show. And week 4 is in the books. Not as crazy of a week as it was last week. But there are a few things that I want to talk about before we get into the show. I want to say, no, I will not be talking about Chiefs-Jets because most of that talk will be probably about Taylor Swift-oriented. And honestly, I'm already sick of it. Week and a half in, I'm already sick of it. So I am not going to be talking about that. There are a few games, though, that I do really, really want to talk about. One that I'm forcing myself to talk about, and the other that I actually think are some interesting talking points. Yeah, I'm getting it out of the way right now. I will just get this completely out of the way right now. Those of you who have been with me since I started this channel a little over a year ago, I started it in August of last year. And those of you who have been with me know that I am a diehard New England Patriots fan. I have been a fan ever since I started watching football back in... was it the 2011 season, the 2012 playoffs. And my first ever game I watched was with my dad on the TV in his kitchen, where we watched the Patriots destroy the then Tim Tebow-led Denver Broncos in the divisional round of the playoffs. And that was my introduction to football. That was my introduction to Patriots football. And I've been a fan ever since. I will admit, I've been incredibly spoiled. I have been ridiculously spoiled. Most, if not all, Patriot fans that have been with us, been with the team throughout that 20-year span, forever how long, we've been ridiculously spoiled with all the greatness of Brady and Belichick and Super Bowls. And it was a guarantee every single year that we would win the AFC East and make it as far as at least the AFC title game. We were spoiled for many, many years, and for the first 10 or so years as being a football fan, I was spoiled. And ever since Brady left, we have fallen on hard times. We've had a couple losing seasons, though seasons where they are losing, but we fell one game under 500 in both those instances. One playoff appearance where we got shellacked. But I was always holding out hope. Because I am an optimist when it comes to this team. I am an optimist when it comes to football. I look at this team and what it's done over the past couple of years, and I say, okay, if this thing goes right, if there's certain things that go right, this team could be competitive, and they could be really, really good. And it was like that coming into this season. Really close loss to Philly, where we could have won that game. Really close loss to Miami. We rebound against the Jets and get a desperate needed win. But even then, there was like, okay, we could have piled it on more. And then this past Sunday happened and everything just hit the fucking fan. The one time that I remember a loss this terrible, being a fan of this team, was back in 2014. Those of you who were a fan at that point probably know what I'm talking about. Ironically, another Week 4 game. Monday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, where Tom Brady and the Patriot offense couldn't do anything against the Chiefs. Jamal Charles just ran all over us, and we lost that game 42-14. I remember being 14 years old, staying up on a school night, and I sat there, I watched the entire game because I had the mindset of, hey, you talk so much shit, you talk about this team nonstop, sit there and take the pain. Boy, it was really hard to have that mentality on Sunday. Patriots went into Dallas and got absolutely demolished in Jerry World, 38-3. Outside of the first drive of the game, it was basically not competitive at all. And it wasn't just that they got blown out on the road against a Super Bowl contending team in the Dallas Cowboys that is coming into this week incredibly pissed off after getting humiliated by the Arizona Cardinals. If it was just that, it wouldn't be that terrible. But it's the little things in this game that made me want to be on the verge of detaching myself from this team. First of all, let's just get it out of the way. Mac Jones played easily his worst game as a pro. This was the worst game I've seen him play, even going back to his days at Alabama. He looked good on the first drive. He's making some good throws. He had what should have been a touchdown pass to Mike Gesicki that was just a little bit out of his reach, but we've seen Gesicki make catches like that in the past. And, it looked competitive at first, And we've seen this before where Mac's made mistakes in the past, but he's always been able to rebound. He's always been able to he's very good at putting things behind him. I don't know what happened, but we were in it. We were competitive. And then Mac Jones gets strip sacked by a defender that he didn't see right behind him. He didn't sense the pressure at all. Strip sack at their own 10-yard line. Lane Vander Esch scoops and scores. Now all of a sudden we're in a big hole. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, here we go again. We keep doing this to ourselves where the team keeps putting themselves in this deep ass hole early in the game that the offense can't take themselves out of. They don't have enough talent that they play consistently at this moment in time where they could dig themselves out of that hole. And then after that play, I don't know what happened to Mac, but that whole Mac's very good at putting mistakes behind him thing, that just went out the fucking window, and he started doing the most boneheaded things where he ran to his right, threw it back across his body, completed it to Kendrick Bourne. Shouldn't have thrown it to begin with, but he completed it. KB was able to struggle, pick up a first down. And then 2 plays later, does the exact same thing. And this time the DB read it like a book, picked it off, returned it for a pick six. There were 3 times in this game where Mac Jones should have been pick sixes. Because the very next drive, he threw it right into the stomach of Jaron Kearse. Should have been picked off and should have been housed. And then later in the game in the third quarter, Mac Jones on a 4th down throws a ball late to Juju Smith-Schuster. Also throws it a little behind him where it's the same guy, Deron Bland, picks it off again. And if it weren't for Juju tackling him, he could have housed it for his second pick six of the game. You could have been walking out of this game where Mac Jones threw not just 3 interceptions, 3 pick sixes. The guy that we saw as a rookie, where he was calm, he was poised, he was making the smart decisions, he was making all the smart reads, he knew what he was seeing on the field. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if last year, with the whole offensive coordinator bullshit from last year, if that destroyed his confidence. I don't know if it just completely destroyed his mentality where he feels like he now has to play hero ball all the time because we don't have a whole lot of talent that we play on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know what it is, but something just went haywire, and it resulted in him getting benched. And he single-handedly lost us the game. Now, he's not the only problem with this team. He's not the only problem. But on Sunday, he was the main one. Next up, there's a few things with this. Because it's not, like I said, it's not just on Mac. It's not just on Mac. The offensive line has been a fucking turnstile. This offensive line, there were questions about it going into even from the preseason where they're like, oh, this offensive line doesn't look good. And I was like, hey, relax. It's mostly the backups. Once the starters come in, everything's going to be fine. The only problem is we've played one game this year so far where at least 4 of the starters of the offensive line actually played the game together. One game, and that was the Jets game. And once you know it, we played relatively fine. Cole Strange has been dealing with injuries for most of the year. Mike Onwenu, I don't know what happened to him. He has not played well so far this year. Trent Brown's been better. And right tackle has just been a fucking shit show. Lowe has been terrible. Calvin Anderson has been a liability when he's out there. Riley Reif's supposed to be eligible to come off IR this week. Is that the answer? I don't know. He's 34 years old. I don't fucking know. City he was a guard that they drafted to play tackle, and he didn't play well at tackle when they played him at there. I don't know what you do with this offensive line. Adrian Clem is looking like a horrible hire right now because this offensive line has just been a complete liability. The strength of this team was supposed to be the offensive line and their run game, and on the ground, they have not been able to do anything. They have not done anything. Ramondre Stevenson so far has been a bust this year. He's averaging less than a yard after contact. That was the whole thing with him last year was you hit it. He's big. He's like 6 foot, 240 pounds or something. His whole thing is he had incredible contact balance. You hit him, he's not going to go down on first contact, and he's going to be able to pick up and fall forward for a few more yards. He has not been that guy this year. Zeke Elliott's been that guy, but we can't rely on Zeke because they haven't given him the fucking football. And that's another thing with Zeke, is that Zeke played his best game last week. He's coming home to Dallas where he spent his first, 8 years of his career in Dallas. You know this game meant so much to him. You know he wanted to come and make an impact. You know he wanted to beat this team. And you give him, 6 carries on the day? And he's our best running back at the moment from a production standpoint. And you're just refusing not to give him the football? Why? I don't get it. I don't get it. And then you get to the receiver part about it. Fuck. I can't speak because this fucking team. So, I don't know what this whole thing with the offense has just been living proof to me that Belichick needs to have GM responsibilities taken away from him. Because he has, and it's not just this past few years, he has done this throughout most of his time as a GM. The vast majority of it, I would say, where he just doesn't go for the most explosive offensive players. I mean, yes, every now and then he'll go after a Randy Moss. Yes, every now and then he'll go after a Josh Gordon or an Antonio Brown. Or he'll find a Rob Gronkowski in the draft. Every now and then, hell, a fucking broken clock's once every now and then. But for the most part, it's just his ability to scout receivers and find receiver talent is not good. I mean, you look at the guys that get the vast majority of snaps at the offensive side of the ball. From a pass catching standpoint, you have your 2 tight ends, Hunter Henry, who's all reliable. There's nothing wrong with him. And then Mike Gesicki, who is he's a big body, tight end. He's a tight end listed as one, but he's basically a big body slot receiver that they also have blocking him most of the time. And that's a mark against Bill O'Brien for not using him properly. And then, but for the most part, the tight ends is not that big of an issue. But you look at the receivers, Kendrick Bourne, thank God for him. I don't know what the receiver production would look like if it weren't for Kendrick Bourne. And even he is incredibly inconsistent. And then the next 2 guys from a snap count perspective after him, Devontae Parker, who they extended in the offseason, that I still don't understand why they did that, because he's not a vertical threat, but he's like a 50-50 ball winner that is inconsistent at that, and he has injury issues. Hell, he started the year on the injury report. And then Juju Smith-Schuster, I completely forget he's on the team half the time. Juju has done nothing on this team. They gave him the exact same contract that the Raiders gave Jacoby Myers. I would kill to have Jacoby back on this team instead of Juju. At least with Jacoby, we know what we're going to get. At least Jacoby, we know, like, if it's third down and we need, like, a big, huge catch to keep the chains moving, Jacoby was that guy, and that was Mac's guy. Mac knew if I need a big play where I know I can get it to a guy that I know he could catch it, Jacoby's that guy. He's not there anymore, and he doesn't have enough of a good chemistry with Juju for him to be that guy. He's been a complete non-factor. So far, that contract looks horrible. And then the younger guys, why is Demario Douglas only getting 18 snaps in a game? In a game where we're losing by so much. Why is Demario Douglas getting benched because he fumbled one time in a primetime game against a good Dolphins team? He fumbles one time and then doesn't see the field again on offense. Why? Why is Kayshon Boutte a constant healthy scratch? Why? Because he couldn't keep his feet in bounds 2 times in the opening game? He's a fucking rookie. He'll learn. Thank God Tyquan Thornton's coming off of IR this week. Thank fucking shit for that. Because, holy shit, none of these guys that they play can separate outside of Demario Douglas, and even then, he doesn't see the field that much. They don't try and get him the football that much. The one time he touched the football yesterday, he went for 42 yards, and he put on this sick-ass juke move, snatched a DB's ankles, and then doesn't get the ball for the rest of the game. You're telling me Bill O'Brien can't figure out a way to manufacture touches for him? Get it to him on end arounds, use him as a gadget player. That's basically what he is. You're telling me we can't figure out a way to get the ball into Demario Douglas's hands? You're telling me Kayshon Boutte fucked up so bad in the first game of the season against Philadelphia that he's not allowed to see the field anymore? What? Like, I'm happy Tyquan Thornton's coming back off IR this week. He should play at least. At least I'm hoping so. But even then, it's like, are they going to use him at all? Or are they just going to use him on fucking 4-yard hitches or 9-yard curl routes and not use him as a deep threat that he is? Like, I don't fucking know, man. Why are we have, like, everyone's saying, like, they don't have talent. They don't have any guys that can be explosive playmakers. They do. They do have guys that can be explosive playmakers. They just don't fucking play them. They don't play them and play the guys that don't do shit. We have now gone back-to-back weeks where the top receiver on the team has we are going 2 straight weeks where only one guy on the offensive side of the ball has more than 2 catches a game. Back-to-back weeks where only one guy on the offense is getting 2 or more catches. And Bill O'Brien was supposed to be the savior. He was supposed to be like, hey, we're bringing him in because last year was a fucking disaster. Last year, it was a disaster. It was a horrible blemish on Belichick's resume to make Matt Patricia a failed defensive coordinator and think he could call plays on offense. And Bill O'Brien was coming in as a real OC. He's going to turn this ship around. Yeah, there's been improvements. When they actually have gone into the red zone, they look like a more efficient team. The problem is they can't get into the fucking red zone most of the time. And that falls on Bill O'Brien. And I don't know what else to do. I don't know what there is to do because you have a quarterback whose confidence looks shot. You have an offense that doesn't have any explosive playmakers and doesn't play the ones that can be explosive. The offensive line is in shambles and can't stay healthy. I don't know what you do. Like, I don't know what the answer is. The, and then I haven't even talked about the defense. The defense looks fine. The defense played as well as they could yesterday, but even then, we're having question marks because our two best defensive players got injured yesterday. Christian Gonzalez dislocated his shoulder. Who knows how long he's going to be out for. And then Matthew Judon, late in the fourth fucking quarter, no less, in a blowout loss where there was no shot in hell we were winning, fucking tears a muscle in, well, I don't even remember fully what it was, but tears a muscle in his arm, and it looks like it's going to require surgery, which means he's probably going to be out for the year. Helen, depending on how severe Christian Gonzalez's injury is, he might also be out for the year. Like, everything that could have gone wrong on Sunday for the New England Patriots did go wrong. And they got New Orleans at home, and my God, they fucking need to get a rebound. And they can't just merely beat the Saints. That's the thing. Like, in order to restore some kind of hope that this season can be somewhat salvageable, they need to not just beat the Saints. They need to blow out the Saints. Because you think the Patriots are stuck in mediocrity right now. The Saints are stuck in fucking purgatory. They can't just merely beat the Saints. They can't beat the Saints the way they beat the New York Jets. They can't do that. You can't expect them to just win 17-10 and think, okay, we can calm down, that everything's going to be fine. No, they got to actually, the offense needs to put up points. And that's the struggle. It's like this offense, it's like the idea of scoring more than 20 points is just too much for this offense to ask for, apparently. And I get that. I get it. It's only week 4. There's still 13 games left to go in the season. And I alluded back to that loss in Kansas City many years ago on Monday Night Football, where they got blown out. Everyone's saying, hey, the Patriots look done for. They don't look like a good team. And then they rebounded. And then they won a bunch of games. I think they only lost 2 games for the rest of that year. But the problem is, I don't know if Mac Jones is not Tom Brady. Nobody will ever be Tom Brady. And expecting Mac Jones to be Tom Brady, and that's the thing. It's like almost like I try not to do this hot take shit, but it's almost like Bill Belichick has this arrogance as a GM where he thinks that because Mac performed so well as a rookie, that he's like, okay, I could just do the same exact thing where I could just put anybody out there on offense and we'll be fine because Tom did it for so many years. We won Super Bowls with Tom throwing it to guys off the street. Who's to say Mac can't do the same? Yeah, because Mac showed you on Sunday why. Because when you get into a big deficit and he gets in his own head, he starts doing boneheaded shit like that. Mac Jones is not Tom Brady. Stop treating him as if he's Tom Brady. And look, I want to be an optimist. I do genuinely believe at some point they will turn the season around. There's still a lot of weeks left. But they gotta show me something. They have to show me something. They gotta show the fan base something to say that this season can be salvageable and they can at least compete if they can get to the playoffs. They gotta show something. Because right now this team looks fucking dead in the water. They look like a lost puppy wandering through the fucking Sahara Desert and nobody knows what the fuck to do. That's all I have to say about that. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, there's really nothing else to say about them. They rebounded. They got humiliated against Arizona, and they took a huge rebound when they came in with an agenda this week. They came in pissed off, and they got the job done. All right, let's move on to a few other games to talk about. I already spent damn near half this podcast talking about this team, but anyway, let's move on here. Next up is Cincinnati and Tennessee. Talk about a game that I did not see coming whatsoever. You know, you expected this game to be the reverse of what it actually was. The Titans ended up winning this game 27-3. For those of you keeping track, it was the exact score that the Titans played against the Cleveland Browns last week, where the Titans lost to the Browns 27-3. This week they do a little flip and reverse on the other Ohio team. And the Titans, you know, they looked lost the first 3 weeks of the season, and this was a big morale boost for them. You know, Derrick Henry had some really nice runs in this game as well. He looks like he still has something left in the tank. He also had the vintage touchdown pass in that formation that you see the Titans run almost all the time at the goal line, where they have Derrick Henry lined up in the Wildcat, and then they'll have him run up to the line, and then he'll pop pass it. Teams still fall for it. I've never seen them run that formation at the goal line where Derrick Henry's actually kept it and ran it in. And if it has, I don't remember it happening. But the main talking point coming out of this game for me was the Cincinnati offense. Joe Burrow was not 100%, man. That I don't know if the calf injury was more serious than we thought it was, or if it's bugging him more than we anticipated it to. But he has not looked good. The Bengals, the first 3 weeks of the season, did not look good. You know, they got humiliated week 1 by the Browns, and then they didn't perform well week 2, and then they came in week 3 at home against the Rams on Monday Night Football. They walked out with the win, but that was even a game that on the offense you didn't still feel confident about it. So like, okay, we got the win. We got into the win column. We're 1-2, but the offense still has a lot of question marks. You know, the offensive line, that's been a bugaboo that they've been trying to fix for a few years now, and it's still not fully fixed. And Burrow and the receivers just look out of sync. You know, Jamar Chase has been a little inconsistent. T. Higgins is now battling injuries. And Joe Burrow just doesn't look like Joe Burrow. And you get into this game against Tennessee, and it was supposed to be a little bit of a get-right game. I know that sounds weird to say coming off of a win the week before, but you know, it was kind of like a get-right game for the offense, where you're like, all right, we're playing against a Titans team that has no sense of direction whatsoever. This should be a get-right game for the offense, and they took one step forward and then 15 steps back. Joe Burrow was under pressure all day. He cannot move. That calf injury is still fucking with him because he cannot move the way he was throughout his career here in Cincinnati. And he just looks, I don't want to say he looks like a shell of himself because that implies that he has nothing left. But he does not look like the $275 million quarterback they paid at the start of the season. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I feel like you have to, if you're the Bengals, you have to sit Joe Burrow until you know he's 100% healthy. Because maybe that's what it was. Because he suffered that injury to his calf the second day of practice of training camp. And I feel like he rushed back from it. Because he wanted to be ready for week 1, and he wasn't fully healthy, and he didn't feel fully comfortable, but he wanted to be out there, and he rushed out, and I think it's starting to screw with him a little bit, because now the mobility aspect of his game is almost completely taken out, and mix that in with a bad offensive line and not being on full timing with your receivers, all of a sudden, this team does not look consistent. This doesn't look like the Bengals that we're accustomed of seeing. And like I said, it's only the first month of the season. He could heal up, and all of a sudden the Bengals return to being the Bengals, and we'll be seeing them deep into January. And I, for the most part, still believe that absolutely is. But starting out 1-3 is a horrible way to start the year. You're already starting out because, starting out 1-2 in the year is one thing. If you start the year 1-3, now you're starting to get a sense of all right, we have a bit of panic here. Not full blown panic, but it's starting to creep in. There's a sense of, all right, we need to find something to fix. We need to fix something because we're 1-3. Something's not going right. And I think it's best for the Bengals to just sit Joe Burrow for a couple weeks, or at least until that calf is healed up. And I don't blame the Bengals if they don't want to do that, because if you do bench Joe Burrow, what other option do you have, even if it is for a short period of time? But what's going on right now in Cincinnati is not working whatsoever. So that's all I wanted to say about that. And then one game that I was actually unironically rather excited to see coming into this week was the Denver Broncos heading into Chicago to take on the Chicago Bears. And honestly, I was actually really excited for this, because it was going to be the tank bowl to end all tank bowls. I viewed it as because you're coming off of a week where the Denver Broncos were at an all-time low from an organization standpoint, where they had just given up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins, that after this week, the Buffalo also look rather human after all. And they end up, just being in this complete organizational dysfunction. And the Chicago Bears have just had a horrible year with some sense of expectations coming into the year. And now they've come into the season 4 weeks in, and they look completely lost as not just a team, but as an organization as a whole. And I was genuinely excited, because I viewed it as like a WWE loser leaves town match. Whoever loses this game should be relegated to the XFL. So I was rather excited, though, because I'm hey, both these defenses are terrible. The offenses have some talent. And the Broncos, at least, have shown that in bits and pieces this year. Chicago, obviously, not so much. But I was okay, this could be interesting. And at first, I was stunned, because Chicago was running away with this. It was 28-7 at one point. Justin Fields easily had his best game as a pro. His first 300-yard passing game. Cole Kmet had, 3 touchdowns in the game. And the Bears looked like they were running away with it. And Denver, still reeling after that 70-point catastrophe in South Beach, was just, I can't imagine what they were like in that moment. But second half rolls around. All of a sudden, the Denver Broncos start making a comeback, man. Russ starts finding guys. The offense starts getting it going a little bit. The Broncos defense makes some huge plays. They get a scoop and score that resulted in tying the ball game. And then they win. They come all the way back down 28-7 and win with a game-winning field goal against the Chicago Bears. And it was rather entertaining, actually. I don't know what this game says more about. Because Denver, hey, they got the win, and I think that's all they care about right now. The organization took a massive blow last week by Miami, and they needed this win so badly. Even though it is only against the Chicago Bears, they needed this so badly. But the main talking point in my eyes is the Chicago Bears. I mean, just when you think it can't get lower, it somehow gets lower. Because, on one hand, Justin Fields and the offense did something. And you couldn't say that the first 3 weeks. You could say that in at least the first half of this game where it's like they were able to do something and they were able to get something going. And then the defense just completely imploded. The offense just stopped working. It was like, oh shit, we're supposed to be bad for some reason. Like, we're supposed to be the worst team in football. And they just completely, all that good play that they had, especially on offense in the first half of this game, it's almost like the coaching staff hit like a factory reset and they just forgot everything about how the sport of football works. it's it's like just when you think it can't go lower, it somehow does. And now they're 0-4. I mean, their season was already over. You could say that after week 2 that their season was over, but now it's like confirmed. Caleb Williams, you are a Chicago Bear. Marvin Harrison, you might be a Chicago Bear. But man, the Chicago Bear, I don't know what. This team had so many expectations, and they have just completely imploded. They just sent Chase Claypool home this week. They actively told him, hey, just stay away. Don't come to the facility. He's going to get released in the near future because I can't imagine any reasonable organization trading assets to get Chase Claypool on their roster. You know, DJ Moore's probably losing his fucking mind. Justin Fields looks... I don't want to say look broken because he showed signs of life. He actually did show signs of life. But that second half for that team was just brutal. And it's just... It leaves you in a spot where you're just like, where do you go from here? For the Chicago Bears, where do you go? Because this team has, every time you think that, all right, this is bad, you can't get lower than this, they somehow find a way to go lower and lower and lower. And now you're starting to think of, is this an 0-17 football team? I know it's early. I know we just got done the first month of the football season. But 0-17 looks very realistic for this Bears team. And honestly, Bears fans, I'm sorry, but I would low-key like to see that. So, but yeah, man, this Bears team has just been horrible all year. They have nothing to celebrate. They had something to celebrate, and then it just got dashed. Man, I'm sorry, Chicago Bears fans. I'm so sorry. And then finally, last game I want to talk about, or at least the last game that I really want to talk about, is last night's game. Monday Night Football between the Seattle Seahawks and the New York Giants. Seahawks are back. Seahawks, after having a really bad week 1, where they kind of stalled out in the second half against the Rams, and the Rams boat raced them. Ever since then, they've really gotten back into their groove. Geno looks good again, and the offense is starting to click once more. The defense is really starting to pick it up. They once again look like the playoff team that they were last year. So that's good news for Seattle. And as far as the New York Giants go, every week that passes, it makes you scratch your head and wonder why this team thought that they needed to pay Daniel Jones more than Saquon Barkley, who's their best offensive player. Their best offensive player who's been injured these last couple of weeks. And maybe that's some validity to why they didn't want to pay Saquon. But it's still no excuse as to how the quarterback we saw play on Monday night and the quarterback we've seen play throughout this season is somehow getting paid $40 million a year to be horrible. In 2 home games, the New York Giants have a combined 3 points. In 2 home games for the New York Giants this year in MetLife Stadium, they have 3 points. 3 points. You know how many points the opposition has scored in those 2 home games? 64. They lost 40-0 against the Cowboys in week 1. And they lost 24-3 last night against the Seattle Seahawks. And all of a sudden, I mean, you kind of got the sense a little bit of it last year. At least I did, at least. But the New York Giants look like frauds. They look like a team that lucked into a playoff spot last year. A team that won a bunch of games they had no business winning. And now they came into the year with expectations. And now they're being shown to the world for the team that they actually are, which is a team that is not ready to be in the spotlight, a team that is not ready to compete, a team that is stuck now in a horrible quarterback contract where you have a below average at best quarterback making $40 million a year while your best offensive player is in a spot where he's making just a little more than what he would have been on the franchise tag. And the original contract offer they gave him was actually less than that. So, this is on them. This is all on them. And Brian Daboll, I still love him as a coach. I still love Brian Daboll as a coach, but this is not working. Whatever it is for the New York Giants, this is not working. Daniel Jones is not the guy, and you're stuck with him now. At least with New England and Mac Jones, if Mac Jones plays for the rest of the year like he did on Sunday, at least then it's like, okay, he's on a rookie contract. We could just get rid of him after this year, and it's not going to hurt us. With Daniel Jones, that is, with Daniel Jones, you're stuck with him. You are stuck with that contract. You're not getting out of it unless you want to destroy your fucking cap. You are stuck with what you have with Daniel Jones, and you have nobody else to blame for it but yourself. You don't have any receivers. You can't get a run game going. The offensive line has been in shambles. Evan Neal looks like a bust. Everything has been horrible for the New York Giants, and this should have been an 0-4 team had the Arizona Cardinals not forgotten that they have to tank this year. This is a terrible team. This is legitimately one of the 5 worst teams in football this year. And the offensive genius of Brian Daboll, we saw it last year. We saw Brian Daboll can put a good offense out there. But Daniel Jones is actively holding this team back, and you can't get rid of him. It's impossible to get rid of him at this point. You can bench him, but 1, bench him for who? And 2, I don't think they want a situation where their backup quarterback is making $40 million a fucking year. So, this is brutal. And this is a spot where the New York Giants, like I said, they had so much expectations coming into this year that they should not have had because, like I said at the start of this, they lucked into a playoff spot last year. This was not a good team that wasn't ready to compete even last year. But they lucked out because they started, 7-2. And, people thought this team was better than it actually was. And they still have a long way to go. They still have a long, long way to go until this team even thinks about competing for a playoff spot or even competing for a division title. So, yeah, because now, and that's another thing. They're in a division with 2 Super Bowl contenders in Philadelphia and Dallas, and with Washington that Sam Howell has looked really well. That looks like a team that actually can compete for a playoff spot. The New York Giants are just terrible. And and like I said, you can't even think about drafting a quarterback next year because, like I said, you don't want a $40 million backup. That's just a waste of money when you can be using that money to pay your best offensive player and to get other players into the building that are talented that can actually help this team win. Instead, most of your cap is going towards a below average quarterback that can't do anything unless it involves him actually running. Man, the Giants just make me sad. The Giants just make me sad. And I feel like that's what this whole episode has been. It's just a lot of teams that it's starting to make clear that there are certain teams where it's like, all right, they have some serious problems whether they had expectations coming into the year or not. This was a week that shows like, okay, there were some serious problems with these teams that they need to fix now or they're not going anywhere. You had the Giants, the Bengals, the Patriots, all these teams. All these teams are teams that they all have some issues on offense and with the quarterback in some way, shape, or form, each to varying degrees. But it all equals the exact same thing, which is 1-3, and you have a lot to fix if you want to think about competing. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to put a wrap on the video today. Like I have said, if you have not done so already, please like, subscribe, and share the video if you have not done so already. And if you want to go support me on Patreon, the link to that will be in the description down below. That would be greatly appreciated. But with that being said, I'm Double Diesel. Peace.